In today's show, Scoot Henderson is headed to the draft lottery. Can he be the Blazers' good luck charm? Plus, lessons from the playoffs. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. Make it a part of your daily routine. Tell your friends to do the same. Make it your first listen as Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're talking Scoot Henderson headed to the draft lottery. The Blazers made it official. Scoot Henderson will be the Blazers' representative at Sunday's draft lottery selection. And then it's draft season, baby. We'll also talk about lessons from the NBA playoffs. The nature of the NBA playoffs is that you learn something every night. But I think what we learned in these two nights, particularly in the Western Conference playoffs, is there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of ways to do it. And I'll talk about sort of the changing from night to night, maybe the lessons learned from separate teams and what they teach you each and every day. And then we'll continue our season review series. We'll talk Rob Williams, Time Lord, and what's next for the Blazers' big man. That's what we'll do to close the show. First, let's talk Scoot. Let's talk Scoot. So the Blazers made it official today. They announced that rookie Scoot Henderson is headed to the NBA draft lottery, where he will represent the Trailblazers at the selection, which means, like, you don't do anything, right? Like, Scoot doesn't have a lot of responsibilities. He's going to go there. He's probably wear something fun. He likes to dress fun. He will sit at the lectern with the Blazers logo, and then Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum will flip over some cards with team logos on it, and Scoot Henderson will celebrate if the Blazers win and try not to look too disappointed if the Blazers do not end up with the number one overall pick. That's all you do. That's all you do. He doesn't do anything else. Teams kind of go about this in different ways. I think there are different approaches to this. Famously, the Cavs would send Nick Gilbert, son of the owner. But, some people just straight up send an owner. Some people send a member of the front office. Some people send a legend. Sometimes they send a legend who also works in the front office. And sometimes they send a current player. So there are many ways to sort of have it be lucky. The Blazers, for the most part, haven't spent too many times in the lottery, so it's not they don't have like here's how it works, a tried and true method, right? They aren't a team that has spent a cajillion times in the lottery. They've had a bunch recently. They sent Damian Lillard, and the Blazers fell back from 5 to 7, and Dame looked sad. I think sad is the right, I think he looked frustrated. It was kind of this moment, it was the beginning of the end. It was actually kind of the middle of the end. I think when CJ McCollum stepped out of bounds, it was the beginning of the end. But there was sort of that live moment of Dame having to come to terms with okay, well, we're not going to be picking in the top 5. We're picking 7th. They ended up keeping the picking Shaedon Sharpe, and it set off a chain of events. And Shaedon Sharpe might end up being really good, and you'll be happy with the 7th pick in the end. The following year, the big old Wemby draft year, they send Brandon Roy. And this was a big moment in Blazers history, or sort of not history. That's maybe overstating it. It was a big moment in the relationship between Brandon Roy and the franchise, right? He hasn't been much of a public figure. He hadn't been to a game in a public way, really prior to that moment. It was, the way his career ended in Portland and the way his NBA career ended in period, he just it took him a while to want to come back and be around and be a public, be a face, right? And then the Blazers invite him back. Joe Cronin invites him back, and B-Roy goes, and it's this moment where it is both sort of mending a bridge that I don't think was burnt or anything like that, but just rekindling a relationship with a franchise icon. And the Blazers jumped up. They jumped up to third. They moved from 5 to 3. And then there was like, send Brandon Roy forever, because B. Roy was on the lectern when the Blazers jumped up to the number 1 overall pick in 2007 following his rookie season. And then he did it again. And he's 2 for 2, and the Blazers improving their draft odds when he sits in the chair. But the Blazers didn't go that way, and they weren't going to send, they chose not to send like just, Joe Cronin or whatever, or some member of, I guess it would probably be Burkhold, but like some member of the Allen estate, or, another member of their front office. They went with Scoot, and I like the pick for Scoot. I like it. I do. I think, I'm not really someone who, I am a little bit superstitious in my like personal life, but in my belief with sort of the Blazers and the draft odds, I think it's a math thing. I don't think you could get it right. Like, I don't think you could send Bill Walton to make it magic, right? Like, I don't believe that. But I do think sending Scoot to this is pretty good juju, because Scoot is the face of the franchise. Whether he is like capable of being a player that is like a franchise pillar remains to be seen. But right now, if there's anyone who you could say is the face of the franchise, it's freaking Scoot. I think Anfernee Simons's future is somewhat uncertain, and they've like drafted behind him in the last 2 drafts. Jeremy Grant, the Blazers, one of their longer tenured players and one of the oldest players on the team, he declined to do exit interviews. He didn't even want to talk to the media and like talk at the end of the year. He wanted to go wherever Jeremy Grant goes. Like, that's not for him. Malcolm Brogdon is a short timer. It would be weird for him. DeAndre Ayton is, while he might be a face of the franchise, certainly is not. That's not like a role where the team has put him front and center very often, and hopefully he'll kind of warm up into that role in the future, but he hasn't been. Shaedon Sharp just doesn't have the personality to do it, although Shaedon Sharp could sit up at the lectern and like not react when the Blazers don't get number 1. Like, Shaedon Sharp would be excellent at not reacting in a public setting. Peak skill. He'd also know where the camera is, because he always knows where the camera is. But I think Scoot is a good sort of public representative for the Blazers. He's got some charisma. Like, he's absolutely charismatic. For my younger listeners, I'll just say the word Riz. He's got Riz. I already regret it. But like, he's charismatic, and he's the face of the franchise to some extent. And this player, like, he's part of what's next. So this player that they're going to draft, whoever it might be, if they get 1 or if they end up falling back from where they are with the pick, like, this player is going to be Scoot's teammate. He's drafted, like, he can celebrate this in a way that veterans can't, because this person is part of his future as well, in a way that sending someone who's a little less certain is, it is awkward sometimes. It's the Damian Lillard face where it's like, 7, huh? Where it's like, is he happy or is he devastated, or was he ever gonna? Was there a scenario where Dame would have, like, it's all very odd. So Scoot he'll be there Sunday. It'll be noon Pacific time. On ABC broadcast in the afternoon here on Mother's Day. The Blazers have a 13.2% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick and a 50% chance of getting a top 4 pick. They also are owed a pick by the Golden State Warriors, and all you need to know is that if the first card that Mark Tatum flips over, it needs to be the Warriors. If it's the Warriors, the Blazers get the pick. If not, it moves to 2025. The Blazers will be owed a top 1 protected pick in 2025. Friday's show, we're going to talk all lottery stuff because heading into the weekend, it's a huge day in Blazer land. Sunday will be. So Friday's show is going to be heavy lottery stuff, all things, everything you need to know. But I think for now, this is good. This is good stuff. I think Scoot's a good choice. He's the right choice. It couldn't be Brandon Roy forever. I guess at some point they should have Greg Oden do it, but I don't know if now is the time necessarily. And obviously there's like some weirdness with Greg Oden. He has certainly not been a public figure in Portland whatsoever, but it would be nice to have Gio be back and do that to some extent, or be involved with the franchise to some extent. I think it would be a better phrasing is what I'm trying to get out there. But I think Scoot headed to the lottery is hopefully brings good luck for the Blazers, and those 13.2% chance, that 13.2% chance of getting a number 1 overall pick cashes in, and you can say that Scoot He's getting the accuracy down. It took him a little while to find the range, but he's finally getting it Sunday on delivering the Blazers the goods. Okay, in the second segment, let us talk about lessons from the playoffs. I've been watching the playoffs. That's what I do. I like watching the NBA. I've been sort of thinking about what lessons that can be taken from the playoffs, not like specifically for the Blazers now, but in terms of like larger holistic team building lessons. I want to share some of those with you, particularly focusing on the Western Conference with the T-Wolves and the Thunder, what we've learned each of the last 2 nights in the league. Let's talk all about that in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. Look, I'm going to use DoorDash on Mother's Day. Not for my own mother and not for my wife, but I have a friend who lives in the area, a good friend of mine, and she's a mom of a couple youngsters. And I'm going to send their family donuts on Mother's Day. I'm going to put a smile on her face using DoorDash. I'm going to open up the app. I'm going to just say, hey, here, send. I'm not going to dox her, but I'll send my good friend a little treat from our neighborhood donut shop right to her house on Mother's Day. So if you want to send your mom a gift, why not? Use DoorDash. Whether she has a sweet tooth or she's a tech enthusiast, a beauty connoisseur, if she's outdoorsy, whatever it is, you can get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place. And get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour or convenience, grocery, or retail order with the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA, and you can order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Today's show is also brought to you by LinkedIn. It's the place where professionals already are. So when you're hiring for your small business and you want to find quality professionals that are right for your role, that's why you check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster. Like I said, LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It's a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours when they use LinkedIn Jobs. In fact, 2.5 million small businesses are already using LinkedIn for hiring because LinkedIn's constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They've even launched a new feature that helps you write job descriptions, make finding the right candidates fast and easy. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's talk lessons from the playoffs. I've learned some things watching the playoffs, and here's the fun part about the NBA playoffs is if I had recorded this particular, I'm recording on late on a Tuesday evening. If you really want me to timestamp it, it's after 11 p.m. on Tuesday night. But if I'd recorded this on Monday night after I watched the Timberwolves dismantle the Denver Nuggets in Game 2, my takeaway might have been that small ball's dead and playing big is back, baby. You can bully people by being gigantic because not only do the T-Wolves dominate Game 1 or win going away in Game 1 because they have 2 7-footers pretty much on the court at all times, but they were able to win Game 2 because they have 3 7-footers who are quality players. So they still had Karl Anthony Towns. They still had Naz Reid, even when Rudy Gobert missed the game due to the birth of his child. Congrats, Rudy. An important night. Absolutely worth missing a playoff game. But like the size up front, particularly because they just have the size to battle Nikola Jokic, but also on the wings, like the fact that the T-Wolves are so big is their special sauce. Tim Connolly, their GM, former GM of the Nuggets, seems to have built a team specifically intended to battle against Nikola Jokic, right? It's specifically intended to take down these giant team, a team that is, quarterbacked, chiefly operated by a giant person. What do you need? You need all types of size, all types of length, and a whole bunch of different bodies to throw at, the MVP to slow him down. That's like the T-Wolves are like specifically seemingly engineered to beat the Nuggets, and they're thrashing them. I think that was the best game I've ever seen Karl Anthony Towns play. I think it was the best game I've ever seen him play. He was freaking great in Game 2. And if I had recorded this particular segment after Game 2, I probably would have said that, right? I probably would have said, like, small ball's dead. Teams were never really small. Size on the wing has always been important, even over the last decade. But it's just like Draymond Green was 6'6" playing center, and then the team that battled the Warriors the best, the Rockets, like really also tried to play small as well with strong wings, but not particular size. And they didn't always play traditional center when Clint Capella was off the floor. And you built these small ball, tough, rugged, switchy units. And that was those were the two best teams in the NBA. And even to some extent, the Cavs tried to play, find ways to play without a traditional center. And you got, small ball finals and all of those things, right? That was of the previous iteration of the teams that won championships and competed for titles. Small ball was the thing, and then it died. It's dead now because the T-Wolves and Nuggets reign, and being big matters so much, and that's the lesson from the playoffs. And then I'll watch the Thunder tonight, and they don't even play anyone who I would classify as a real NBA center. Chet is big. He's a big person. Chet Holmgren is big, obviously very tall, but he weighs as much as I do. He might weigh a little more than me, I hope, but not much. Like he's listed at like 210 or something like that. He's skinny, and he's not certainly not like a traditional center by any means. A tall person, to be sure, but not like a traditional burly center, and not someone who you would say is like, he's like, oh, he's so big, he's going to be like, the thing about Chet is that people think he's like maybe physically not big enough, right? And like, that's the knock on him, is that he does everything so freaking well, but he's just like slight. He's obviously extremely good despite being slight, but even when Chet's off the floor, like the OKC dominated their opening game against the Dallas Mavericks, playing some minutes where, like, I guess functionally Aaron Wiggins was the center, like truly small ball, tiny, all wing lineups, and not even like super big players, not even like, oh, everyone's 6'8", like a bunch of 6'6" dudes who just play tough and swarm. And they swarm. Does OKC swarm? I thought they were, particularly later in the game, they put a lot of drop coverage, but later in the game, they kind of started really getting after it and helping hard. Like if you watch the backside of the way they're guarding Luka Doncic, specifically Kyrie Irving a little bit too, but Luka really is like, they are loaded up. Luka's coming off a screen and there are 10 eyeballs on him and 4 guys on his half of the floor, like loaded up to say, okay, it's not going to be you. And they get in the passing lanes, and they've been they rebounded fine in game 1, but they've been a bad rebounding team all year. Like they don't play particularly big. So maybe small ball's still alive. Maybe the dream of the Warriors and the Rockets of yesteryear still alive in OKC, because you can play these freaky deaky all wing lineups as long as you have the right personnel. And that's the actual lesson from the playoffs. There's a lot of ways to make pancakes. There's a lot of ways to make pancakes. You can make little silver dollar pancakes if you need to. You can make giant flapjacks that take up an entire plate if you need to. You can make somewhere in between. But what you need is personnel that fits together. I think the real truth of the best teams, and when you get to the second round of the playoffs, why I really, really like this time of year, there's no fakers. I mean, Cleveland is worse than all of the other teams, but like there's no fakers, right? You're good if you're here. If you won a playoff series, you're good. And I think you're seeing that in the playoffs, is like these teams are good, and Boston just overwhelmed Cleveland tonight because of what they do. They're just unrelenting in their ability to score and play pressure defense. I'd like to see them play. I'd like to see them play a good team, a slightly more talented team, and have the Celtics get tested, but I might have to wait a little bit to get there. But like the truth, the actual lesson from this is like, you need to build to your strengths, and that's the team building lesson the Blazers can take. It's not that you have to be big, although I do think you have to be big on the wings. I think that is undeniable. You can't be small at 2, 3, and 4. You have to have size at those spots. You have to have length and size at those spots. But what you do at center, like, there's different ways to do it. What type of player your point guard is, there's different ways to do it. And you can play with smaller point guards and probably get away with it in some lineups if you're big on the wings. But like Minnesota looks awesome because their team makes so much sense. Could other teams play 2 centers together? I don't know. I think Karl-Anthony Towns is unique, and him and Rudy Gobert took basically a full season to figure it out. And now that partnership is really special. They don't get abused in the way that other teams likely would, trying to play 2 centers together. And credit to Karl-Anthony Towns for the strides he's made there. And Rudy Gobert is an all-time great defensive player. And they got some freaking awesome wings on the perimeter to make it all work. Like they really sit down and get after you. And OKC, their brand works because they have incredible shot making and they force turnovers like hell. That has been their secret sauce. That's why those 2 teams were 2 of the top 6 defensive teams in the league this year. Because the way Minnesota has built themselves, it fits. And the way OKC has built themselves in an entirely different vein, it all seems to fit. The real lesson from the playoffs is once you kind of identify what your core pieces are for OKC, Shea, Jalen Williams, and Chet, building around what your identity is. For Minnesota, it's Rudy Gobert and Cat and Ant, and then building around that identity. Okay, we're big. What do we also need? We need crazy defensive wings who are going to never switch and fight over the top of screens and stay connected. And that way we can leave our guys in drop. We can be big and be behind the ball and all those things. Like, there isn't one correct way to do it. The correct way to do it is to build personnel that fits. Build with personnel that fits. Identify what your identity is going to be and build from there. Or if in case of Minnesota, like, if you're going to make the trade, build your identity because you say, okay, this is the weird risk we're going to take. How do we build it? How do we craft our plan around it? There is not one correct way to do it, right? Like, there's not a correct. There are the teams, the best teams, the teams that are playing the best right now remaining. They do it in very, very different ways. But the truth is that to get this far in the playoffs, you better be talented and your team better make sense. And I think the lessons from the playoffs is there's a lot of different ways to make pancakes. But if you're making waffles, you might go home early. Let's talk Rob Williams to close the show. We're continuing our season preview series. We've got a handful more to wrap up before we get into full draft mode beginning next week. So let's talk Rob Williams, Blazers big man, and his all too brief stint with the Blazers in his first season in Portland. Let's talk about that to close the show. First, though, let me tell you about Monopoly Go. It is the great spin on traditional Monopoly that you are going to love. If you love Monopoly, it means you're pretty competitive. Like, the Monopoly brings out some wild competitive folks, but in Monopoly Go, you can not only feed your competitive side, but you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much more to get. Unique stickers you can trade. You can trade in complete albums to win big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton of those tournaments and challenges include their own unique minigames like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine, and there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked on Blazers. Continuing our season review series to close the show. We've run through 10 of these. We've got 5 left. Tomorrow's show, we're going to be pretty heavy on season reviews. We're going to get through the end of them. But today we're going to spend a little bit of time on Rob Williams. I did do a season preview for Rob Williams, but he only played 6 games with the Blazers. So we're not going to visit from Michael from the past because the whole point of those previews is like within reason and without injury, and he got injured. And so like we don't need to sit through a prognostication from the fall because it fell outside the sort of parameters of that prognostication. Let's talk Rob Williams' season. It lasted 6 games. Showed up in training camp. The trade went down. The Blazers traded Damian Lillard to Milwaukee, got Drew Holiday, flipped Drew Holiday to Boston in exchange for Rob Williams and Malcolm Brogdon and a couple draft picks. And Rob comes over just before training camp, right? Like that was Friday, and I believe media day was Monday, right? So he comes over the weekend before training camp begins. They left for Santa Barbara the following morning, and then in training camp, Rob Williams had a pretty tough needed knee action. He hit knees, I believe, with Jeremy Grant, and he didn't play in preseason, or played. All of a sudden it's like, okay, we're not going to see him, but he gets in the game night 1. Like he's available on opening night, and he plays in the first 3 games, and like it's clear he can play, right? Like he's only playing 19 to 23 minutes a night, right in that 20-minute range, but like he's going to be a backup, but he gets 3 steals in his first game. Like he's a defensive playmaker. He's going to get some rebounds. He's not going to do things outside of his skill set on offense. Blazers play their first back-to-back of the season, and he gets a night off to rest. And then he plays two more games after that. He's up to 5 total on the season. He's appeared in 5 of the first 6 games. Clearly can play a little bit. We've seen very sparingly him play next to DeAndre Ayton, and just like, oh, that doesn't work. But like they experimented with it, and they probably were going to go back to it. Then they play the Memphis Grizzlies. This is on November 5th. And in the fourth quarter of that game, Rob got tangled up collided with Jaren Jackson Jr. and went to the ground, and immediately gets up and signals to the bench, like, my knee is hurt. Like, I hurt my knee. And he gets down the court, and he's just like limping and moving terribly, very, very clearly injured, has to play in one possession, like very clearly injured. Then they foul and get him out of the game, and he leaves. And it's like, it was a moment in which you said, oh no, because he had knee surgery in 2022, he had another knee surgery in 2023, and now he's like limping off of the court after, they've been very cautious with him in preseason. We didn't really see him in preseason, very, very cautious with him, right? And the following day, it comes out that he has an MRI, and the Blazers are considering multiple surgical options, and Rob Williams is going to consult with the team, he's going to consult with his agent, he's going to consult with doctors and figure out what path he's going to take. And either he's going to take a season-ending path that's going to end his season, or he's going to take like something that would allow him to get back sooner, right? It never made sense to me, considering where the Blazers are as a team, where Rob Williams would try to hustle back and play. Obviously, he wants to play. He only played 35 games the previous season. He played part of 6 games, 5 and some change games in this one. He's played 41 of the possible 162 regular season games, 164 regular season games over the last previous 2 years, right? Not to mention Boston's playoff appearance. Like, he just hasn't been able to play much, right? He just hasn't been able to play much. So obviously, like, that was under consideration, but it became clear less than a week later when he does elect to go the season-ending path that he was saying, okay, it's not going to be it for me. I need to get right. And on November 13th, he has surgery to repair a dislocated patellar tendon. He'd had surgery in 2022 and 2023 on his left knee. This is the right knee. So like, it's now both knees that he's had issues with, and he misses the remainder of the season. He he was away from the team because when it's like just immobile right after knee surgery. But he came back the second half of the season and was on the bench. Joined them on the road trip, in the closing months of the season, was around the team at the end of the year, and he did an exit interview, not on exit interview day, but he like got up and finally spoke to the media, and kind of downplayed. I think he was very cautious to say whether he would be available in the fall. He said he's not cleared for 5-on-5 as of the end of the season. He hadn't been cleared to play 5-on-5 yet, but he was hoping to be cleared in the nearish future, is what he said. And that's when asked, like, are you going to be, if things go right, he can be ready in the fall. And he was very, very hesitant to say, oh yeah, I'll be ready. Like when training camp opens up, I'll be ready to go. He was not going to say that. I understand why he wouldn't, right? He's dealt with these injuries now for, the 2 full years, even longer than that, going back to their championship run. Like it's I get why he would play it safe, but a level of caution that he used didn't make me feel great about where he thinks his body is. There's been some social media posts. There's a social media post of him back out on the court that I saw shared I think I saw it on Reddit. Might have saw it on Twitter. It's somewhere on the internet. But like of him, getting back, working, dunking, working on, working the baseline, doing what he does. The thing with Rob is that if he's healthy, he can play. He played 6 games, 19.8 minutes a night, playing like 20 minutes a night off the bench in 6 games. He averaged 6.8 points and 6.3 boards. And in those 19 minutes, he averaged 1.2 blocks and 1.2 steals per game. 2.5 stocks, blocks and steals combined, in 20 minutes off the bench. He's just a defensive playmaker, and he can rebound, and he can pass a little bit, and we just didn't see that really very often with the Blazers this year. If he's healthy, he's a good basketball player. If he's healthy, the last time he was fully healthy in a season, for my money, he should have won Defensive Player of the Year. It went to his teammate Marcus Smart, but for me, if I'd had a vote, I didn't. I don't. It would have been, Rob Williams would have been my Defensive Player of the Year. He was that good. He was excellent. He was second team all defense that year. He was excellent. It's just if healthy, that if is carrying a ton of weight. That if is just so much bigger than it used to be. And it was already big with him. That was just like a part of his story was availability. And then this season, it's unknown. During the season, there was some rumored trade interest in him. The Houston Rockets were reportedly interested in trading for him. They ended up trading Victor Oladipo for another center out for the remainder of the season with a knee injury, and in Steven Adams. If Robert Williams is healthy, he's like really helpful to the Blazers and also like a really good trade chip. But if he's not, the if is just carrying a lot of weight. He's under contract for next year for $12.5 million, the following year for about $13.5 million. Very reasonable. That is a very reasonable deal. And honestly, if Robert Williams is healthy, that is a straight up great deal for what he does. He's tradable if he's healthy. He's tradable if he can play, and he's playable if he can play. Like, he's really useful, and the Blazers would have a really fun and talented center duo. I expect that they will, they'll hear out people who are interested in trading for Rob Williams, but his trade deal is his trade value is so low right now coming off this injury that it probably doesn't make any sense for the Blazers to truly explore it this summer. What makes the most sense, and probably makes most sense for everybody, because I would assume Rob wants to play in a good team. He's used to playing a good team in Boston, but like, get right. Whenever you're able to play next year, play as well as you can for as long as you can. And then if you say, hey, I would like to be traded, the Blazers explore those trades and find the best deal they possibly can for him. If he doesn't want to be traded and he's happy here, happy in Portland, like, move forward in that manner, right? But I don't think the Blazers should plan anything that they do roster-wise around the availability of Robert Williams. They should move forward as if he will not be available. They should make decisions as if he will not be available. And then if he is available, great, a wonderful complication to have. All of a sudden you're a gigantic team, right? Like if you add enough size, it's like, okay, great. And now you can add this really good big center when healthy, right? He's not that big, but like, he's a big body. But I don't think you can move forward banking on his availability. I think that would be irresponsible to do. Like I said, if Rob's healthy, he is, 1, very fun personality, 2, just a freaking good basketball player. Good basketball player. We just don't know now. And after 6 games in a very brief Blazers tenure, we don't know what's next. And the most important thing for Rob, just like as a human, get your body right, see if you can play at a high level in the NBA again. And for the Blazers, it's see what kind of player you have and then figure out whether that player is part of the immediate plan or part of a trade, a trade down the lines because he doesn't fit sort of the long-term, we're young and rebuilding type of plan. If Rob Williams is healthy, like if he'd been healthy this year, he is imminently tradable to a contender, right? Imminently tradable to a contender. But he's got to get there, and then that will kind of answer some of the questions. Tomorrow's show. That's going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow's show, it's going to be season reviews. We're gonna wrap up the season reviews. We got Delano Banton, we got Duop Reith. We'll talk Ryan Rupert, and we'll probably briefly mention Moses Brown as well. That'll be it for the season reviews. We'll wrap everybody up. Friday's show, we will look ahead to the lottery with everything you need to know about the draft lottery and a little manifestation with good positive vibes. That's the remainder of the week. That's what we do. 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. And then next week, we're going to shift to draft mode heavy. Like we've already done a bunch of draft stuff on the show. It's 5 days a week, got a lot of shows. So we've already done stuff, but it's going to be draft mode, draft season, get the NBA combine. The Blazers will come back and they'll start holding draft workouts. It will be the mad push to draft season. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. That's the beauty of the show. We're not going anywhere, and you're not getting this anywhere else. So come back, listen to tomorrow's show, come back for Friday's show, and then tell your friends about it. And do me a favor. I never do this, and the show's running a little long, and I apologize for that. You probably don't care, but people in charge do. Sorry, people in charge. If you're someone who listens to this on a podcast app, rate it and review it on the podcast app. Give me a 5-star review. Anything less than that, just don't rate it and review it. 5-star reviews wherever you listen to it, and tell a friend. That is the review stuff matters for the algorithm. I'm not too jazzed about the algorithm. Here's what I'm jazzed about. The way people listen to podcasts is that a friend of theirs who they implicitly trust and explicitly trust says, hey, listen to this podcast. So if you have a friend who would be into the Blazers in freaking May when they haven't played a basketball game in a month, say, hey, I like Locked On Blazers. It's available wherever you get podcasts, and it's also on YouTube. Okay. That's going to do it for today's show. I appreciate you listening, and I'll talk to you soon.